Welcome. Today we're talking about shellac, one of my favorite finishes. It's a finish that has been around for many centuries, actually, and it's really interesting, very pleasing, and very useful to know. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of an overview first. I want you to actually get acquainted with the substance itself. Okay, so this is shellac, all right? Shellac is a blend of waxes and resins segregated by the shellac beetle, okay? And this has been historically harvested and processed. This one is what we call de-waxed shellac or blonde shellac, which has this yellow color, okay? The one that is amber, like a beer bottle, okay? This one I would stay away from unless you're doing period furniture or some very specific things. This amber shellac, which is a little bit more natural, has lots of wax in it, and it it will feel a little bit like you're staining the wood. It darkens very much, and it has an appearance that I don't think is very much in coping with our modern taste. Okay, but this brown shellac will give you a nearly transparent finish, and the colors are not going to be altered. All right, so you can see it's a pretty hard finish. I can just take one of these and I can break it, and it has the consistency of caramel. Okay, um, and so it's we could say it's a hard finish, um, in the sense that it's not like oil, which is always gummy. Okay, this one is kind of brittle and it cracks, and so that's why it's been liked so much by violin makers and musical instrument makers, because I say it doesn't interfere very much with the sound of the instrument. Okay. Um, and so this is mixed with alcohol. I'm getting here some alcohol. It's ethanol from dictum at 96%. And that's fine, okay? But be very careful because there are some alcohols that are used in the industry, like I think it's called methanol in English. Those can be extremely poisonous. Methanol will get you actually blind very quickly. So be careful with those types. All right. Um, and so we make a mix. I'll leave you down below the actual recipe and all the ingredients I'm using, so that you can have some more information. But usually nowadays I'm mixing 7 grams of shellac for 50 centimeter cubic centimeters of alcohol, okay, or 50 milliliters. And now I'm just gonna do it by eye, which you can do perfectly well because it's a very easy uh, mix to improve or to change. You can just add some shellac if you're missing it, or add some alcohol if you want to thin it down, and that's that. All right. So I'm gonna put some shellac here in the pot. I'm going to add some of this alcohol, and you will feel that the shellac has a beautiful smell. Something like that. Has a beautiful, sweet, acid smell that it's always pleasing when you open a cabinet, and it's not overpowering. It's not. It's not very strong, really. It's a kind of a very mild scent. Sometimes you don't even notice, but it's there, and it's a very nice addition. So it's a very good finish for the insides of cabinets. And you will see in the way we're going to apply it, it's very quick and easy. Now, I must say here, we're not doing French polish, which would be the more traditional way of applying shellac that results in a very heavy, thick, glossy coat, such as you would find in a Spanish guitar or in period furniture or this kind of thing. Okay, French polish is actually a trade in its own right. It's done by specialists. You could learn how to do it, of course. I don't know, and I never needed it. So but James Krenov describes in one of his books how to use shellac in a way that it results in a very beautiful satin surface, so to speak, not too glossy, much more pleasing to the eye, or actually in our centuries. I and Yeah, it's a finish that feels beautiful, and it doesn't interfere with the nature of the wood. Actually, it enhances very much the nature of the wood. Okay, so we're going to call this Krenov's method. He describes it, I believe, in his second book, and also the late great David Charlesworth made an article. I think you'll find it also in his second book. Uh, he describing this process and how he would go about that. So anyway, you keep steering this for every 10 minutes, right? And after about an hour, something like that, you will get something like this. This is the diluted shellac. It has the consistency of alcohol mainly, so it's not thick at all. All right, and I'm gonna leave this aside for now. So if you don't keep stirring it every 10 minutes, you will get a very thick lump at the bottom, and that's gonna get really difficult to mix, right? Once you have it in here, always a small funnel, it's a great thing to have for shellac, and you can put it inside the bottle. And as I keep saying, I've never invented anything about woodworking. Everything I tell you, I've learned it from somebody. And this idea of bottling it with this kind of applicator here, my father did that with some of his products. And I think it's a very interesting way to get the right dose in every situation when you're dealing with um, very thin products, very, very not viscous at all. So we're going to apply it on a cotton cloth. These ones come already cut at a very suitable size. You could start by using old sheets and old t-shirts, as long as they are not colored. Okay, if they're colored, you will find sometimes you will find colored strands and particles in your finish. Okay, and so I'm going to be folding this very carefully. This is partly to make sure I don't have any loose strands of fibers um, bothering me all the time, and also that I can have a very fine, even surface. Shellac is very inexpensive, by the way, so that's also a good point. Let me just put these things aside because we don't need them. Now we only need the shellac here. I just wanted to mention you might want to try a fine hairbrush for the first coats, although they're gonna be very heavy coats. If you don't mind that, that could be a very interesting option for the first coats, but not for the rest. Okay. So please check out our previous video to see how we prepare that surface very carefully. You will then know what it is and what's doing here. And now we've got everything ready. The surface is prepared, which is a very important part of any finish. Okay, and you should consider these very carefully and be as thorough as you can, in my opinion. Okay, so I have some threaded inserts here which I want to cover because I don't want them filled with shellac. So very quickly, I'm going to put some masking tape over them. Okay, we're getting a bit fancy today. We're gonna cut the tape in circles, as if somebody cared about that. Particularly, this surface is going to be hidden. It's just a good opportunity for me to show you a shellac application. But so usually I wouldn't bother, not nearly as much, but yeah, there's always a nicer way to do things, and there's always pleasure in working for that. All right, so we will apply shellac in sets of 3 coats. Okay, so I'm going to apply 3 coats in a row. And usually you get several components. Imagine you're making a box. Maybe you have 4 sides, a bottom, and a lid. And then by the time you have applied the first coat to the last component, the first one is going to be immediately dry because this is mainly alcohol, so it evaporates very quickly. And that's one of the great bonuses of using shellac. The dust won't have the time to settle and stick to your work. So, um, glove shellac is used also, not this kind, but there are some food grade shellac that are used for desserts and cooking, and also is used in manicure, I believe. So it's a pretty healthy thing. Actually, it's a natural thing, and as long as the alcohol is not poisonous, you're gonna be fine. But it's always better to have some gloves. Okay. Now, as I was saying, you could, instead of applying 3 coats, the first 3 coats, you can just apply them with a brush, only 1 coat, and that's going to be super thick and enough. Those are the first coats, the only coats that are going to be penetrating in the fibers, because this is a surface finish. So now I'm saturating the cloth, and it takes a little bit of a long time, but it's fine. Later, you won't need to put so much shellac on the cloth. Now I'm just waiting to feel this thoroughly wet. And you do it only the first time you are using this cloth. Later on, you can save it in a pot, reuse it, and then it's gonna be always full. Now I'm saying I'm making a mess down there, but it's going to be fine. You will see. Okay, so now that's saturated. Then I'm going to apply the coats in this way, starting in the middle and going from the middle to the outside parts. You see very clearly it's getting darker. And now the next coat, I'm applying it overlapping a little bit the previous one. And this way I go. Students often ask me, why do you start in the middle? That's because if you start at one end, you might have some drips. Okay. So that's the first coat done. And now I'm finishing here, but at the beginning is already nearly dry. So I can start with the second coat right away. Little bit more shellac. When you start to need to press to get some shellac out of the cloth, then you're missing shellac in the cloth. Okay. Sometimes I find my students just pushing down very hard, rubbing. It's not that. It's just finding the right saturation and letting the shellac leave with a small stroke. Okay. We can perhaps be a little bit more careful about the ends. Sometimes I'm more concerned about talking than about doing what I'm doing. And so please be generous and merciful. All right. So that's the second coat. And we're still missing a third coat. Now I think I have to wait a little bit more. But not so much. You would see soon enough we'll be able to do the third coat. I usually apply 2 sets of 3 coats, okay, for a somewhat satin finish. If I want a little bit more protection, I would apply 9 coats, so 3 sets of 3 coats, and that starts becoming glossy. Okay, beyond 9 coats, this system, I think it might not work very well. If you want a very glossy finish, then you should learn French polish properly. All right, but it's a finish that I love for small boxes and many small kinds of cabinets. It's a beautiful finish and it will work very well in many situations. So let's get on with the third coat. You see, I think this one it's a little bit thick, so I'm just going to pour some more alcohol in here. Sometimes it just evaporates and you want to redo the mix. When it's too thick, it starts becoming sticky, and excessively thick coats of shellac result in very shiny stripes, and you want to get it as even as possible. Okay, that's why we're applying super thin coats. Now that might be a little bit too thin even now. That's what you get when you're focused on talking and not on doing your stuff. Anyway, so let's get here. Third coat. Shellac is perfect also when you want to enhance the chatoyance of curly timbers. Okay, those timbers that go up and down, they have very wavy and deep kind of 3D effect that we call chatoyance, and shellac is just amazing for this. All right. This feels much better now. I can see the coats being much more even. And every coat of shellac will dissolve the previous one, and they result in a very thick, unique coat. If you could look at it with a microscope, I haven't seen any features of that, but I imagine it being not an assembly of layers, but just one thick coat. Okay, that's our third coat of the first set. So that was pretty quick. If you want to support this channel, please like and subscribe. It's gonna be great help for us, and we'll keep delivering content as useful as we can make it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna give you now the waiting times and all these the overview of the process with the sanding and everything. So the drying time is not the same after the first set of 3 coats, then after the second, then after the third, because the thicker is the shellac on your workpiece, and the more time it will take to fully harden. Okay, so these 3 coats will get dry very quickly. I'm gonna say 30 minutes. You can compress or stretch those times. Don't take it too seriously, and just experiment what works for you in your temperature, in your humidity, relative humidity environment, and so on. So 30 minutes after the first 3 coats, okay, we just let it dry and get it nice and hard, and then we're going to sand it back with 400 grit sandpaper. So let's wait for those minutes, and I'll keep explaining later. Okay, the first set is fully hardened, and now I'm going to sand back all those raised fibers, because oddly enough, shellac will raise the fibers just like water, even if it doesn't have any water in it. So you can expect a very rough surface, kind of not rough, but raised fibers. And now I'm gonna cut them back with 400 grit sandpaper. If you saw the surface preparation video with it, it's the same sandpaper we used before. So it is very soft. Only the weight of the block of wood is enough, and I can see the surface becoming very matte and dull, and that's normal. Okay. Perhaps a little bit more here. That's it. As a rule of thumb, in my opinion, many thin coats of whatever it is are always better than one thick coat. Okay, so yeah, just keep that in mind, and I think you will find better results. I'm going to remove all this dust here with the cloth, which I don't know where I put. Up sheet this. And I can see now a very dull and messy surface, which is what's to be expected. And now we can apply the second set of 3 coats in the same way. I'm gonna get my gloves here. Uh, an interesting fact, my friend Vasco Sotirogo, he is a very tidy guy, and he likes applying one very thin coat in every component he's going to be working with during the building process. So he would prepare the reference surfaces, and then he applies one coat of shellac that will kind of seal the surface, and this will prevent problems with dirt in your hands, or if you have sweaty hands and you're working with woods like oak that have lots of tannin in it, you will see those fingerprints blackening your piece, and by the end of your project everything will look gray and ugly. And a way to avoid this is applying this thin coat of shellac that you can actually remove afterwards, even if you like. Okay, so second set, let's begin with that. Very simple. Few drops, and now no pressure. And yes, this feels so much more even than the previous coats I was applying, just because I thinned it down a bit, and it had. Okay, here you go. So that is the first coat. I'm gonna let it dry for a minute, not much more than that, and then I'm gonna apply the second and the third. And then after the second set of 3 coats, so 6 coats in total, I like to wait for about 3 or 4 hours. So if I do this in the morning, I will resume in the afternoon, something like that. And then again, wait and sand. Okay. I see no reason to be using sandpaper finer than 400 grit, although you could experiment going beyond that to finer grades of sandpaper. Okay, it's been a few hours now, and our finish is thoroughly dry. And I've decided this amount of shine is enough for me. It's kind of a satinated shine, and so I'm gonna call it done. But now, I still have some texture here, and I cannot sand again because I'm gonna get everything kind of matte and dull as you've seen before. So what I do is this. Remember I told you about the ABRANET? This particular example here, this one is from 2015, and it doesn't sand anymore. All the sanding particles, all the grit has got away, but I still have this mesh with this super strong, and it doesn't sand, but it burnishes, and it does away with all these tiny bits of dust that are adhered here. And yet it doesn't change at all the appearance of the work. So I like to use it at the end and get this lovely silky texture. Okay. Another thing you could do if you're getting patches or stripe of uneven shine, which is very commonly happening when you're applying too thick a finish, or when the shellac is too thick, then it's very difficult to get it to appear even. Then what some people do is to finish everything with a coat of wax, and wax always looks very nice, although it's not very durable. And you will see fingerprints very quickly. So it's not really a finish. It's something you need to reapply very often. So I prefer to stay away from wax on shellac. If I use wax, I use it alone. And I'll tell you everything about that in a future video, hopefully. Yeah, so that's that.